The human ship appeared in the sky of Thalor Prime like a tiny silver spark. Among the swirling clouds of the alien planet, it seemed almost insignificant. The aliens watching from their floating observation towers gasped at the sight. Ships from other worlds had come before, but humans were rare. Few believed that such fragile-looking creatures could survive space travel at all. Inside the ship, the young human soldier, Marcus, sat quietly in the cockpit. He was 19 years old, just like the alien princess he would soon meet. But there was nothing royal about him. His brown hair fell into his eyes as he adjusted the controls. His armor, though advanced enough to protect him, was modest compared to the gleaming suits the aliens wore. "Landing sequence stable," he said calmly to the small AI in the ship. "Prepare for first contact." The ship descended slowly, the ground trembling beneath it as thrusters met the alien soil. Tall, crystalline towers reflected the sun's light, sending sparkling patterns into the sky. It was beautiful, but Marcus did not let the beauty distract him. He had a mission: diplomacy, observation, and learning. As the hatch opened, a group of aliens approached. They were tall, with pale silver skin that shimmered faintly in the sunlight. Their eyes were large, black, and unblinking. Each movement was elegant, almost too precise, as if they were part of a machine. At the front of the group walked a young female, clearly a princess. Her posture was perfect, her robe flowing behind her in a way that made her seem taller than she was. She was 19, her face smooth and confident, her smile sharp like a blade. She looked Marcus up and down, and the smile twisted into something more mocking than friendly. "Another human," she said in a voice that was soft but carried across the small plaza. "You travel across the stars, only to arrive looking like that?" Marcus tilted his head slightly, noting her words but not responding immediately. His armor clinked softly as he stepped out, boots touching the ground with purpose. The other aliens behind her whispered to each other, curious, cautious, some amused. "I am Marcus," he said finally. His voice was calm, steady. "I come in peace. I am here to observe, learn, and if possible, cooperate." The princess laughed, a light sound that echoed across the plaza. "Peace?" she repeated. "You, in that weak-looking armor, thinking you can impress anyone here?" Marcus did not flinch. Instead, he let the words wash over him and studied her. He noticed the way her eyes darted, the way she seemed so sure of herself, so untouchable. He also noticed that she did not look very strong. Her confidence, while intimidating, had cracks. "I don't intend to impress anyone," he said. "I intend to understand. Perhaps we can learn from each other." The princess raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued but hiding it with another laugh. "Learn from humans? That is amusing." She gestured for her entourage to stand aside. "Very well, show me what your people can do." Marcus nodded once and began walking forward. The aliens shifted, some stepping back in surprise at the humans' calm. None of them had expected such quiet confidence. Most other species would have raised shields, weapons, or at least panicked. Not Marcus. He walked steadily, his eyes taking in everything: the tall towers, the strange floating vehicles, the alien guards with their glowing staffs. The princess followed, her laugh fading into a curious silence. She had not expected the human to show no fear, no anger, no desire to fight. His armor was modest, but his posture was firm, his gaze steady. It was different. "You humans are strange," she said finally, almost to herself. "So small, so fragile, and yet you do not fear." Marcus stopped and looked at her. "Fear is not always necessary," he said simply. "Sometimes understanding is stronger than fear." The princess blinked. She had never heard a statement like that. Every alien society she knew relied on power, status, or technology to maintain respect. Here was a human, 19 years old, telling her that strength could come from something else entirely. Strength comes from power, from skill, from... She began, but Marcus interrupted gently. Sometimes strength comes from patience, observation, and learning. Sometimes it comes from knowing yourself, not your armor. The princess stared at him, her lips slightly parted. She had mocked him, expecting to intimidate, but his words carried weight. The court had trained her in diplomacy, in negotiation, in leadership, but she had never met anyone who could so calmly challenge her ideas without raising a hand or a voice. Her entourage whispered among themselves. The princess's father, the king, had sent her to greet the humans. He had warned her, "They are unpredictable. Humans think differently. Treat them carefully." She had thought it would be easy to laugh at this small human, to show him that aliens were superior in every way. Yet here he was, walking beside her, confident, calm, and unshaken. "Very well," she said finally, regaining her composure. "If you wish to show us what your people can do, there is a test you must pass." Marcus nodded. "I am ready." She led him to a large arena within the palace grounds. It was unlike anything Marcus had seen before. A floating platform with shifting walls, holographic obstacles, and areas where gravity changed. Alien children sometimes played here, and the court watched competitions held among elite warriors. "This test," the princess explained, "is meant for our greatest soldiers. If you succeed, you will earn respect. If you fail, well, you will still entertain us." She smiled, sharp and cruel. Marcus looked around carefully. He did not see a way to compete using sheer strength. The walls were too high, the gaps too wide, and the obstacles too complex for him to rely on physical skill alone. Instead, he studied the patterns, the changes in gravity, the holographic projections. His human mind worked quickly, identifying simple solutions that would avoid unnecessary risk. The princess watched him with increasing curiosity. Most aliens would have charged ahead, relying on reflexes and muscle memory. Marcus moved deliberately, testing small areas first, calculating, timing, observing reactions. When he finally acted, it was smooth, precise, and efficient. The princess frowned. "That is not how anyone else does it." "No," Marcus said simply. "It is how humans do it." One of her advisors whispered something to her. She ignored it, focusing instead on the human. She had thought he would fail spectacularly, giving her a reason to laugh and assert dominance. Instead, he navigated the obstacles with intelligence and calm, achieving what others had struggled with for days. When he reached the final platform, he turned to her and removed his helmet. His hair was messy, his face young and unscarred. Yet, the calm confidence in his eyes was striking. "You see," he said softly, "armor is not everything. Strength is not only physical. Sometimes thinking and patience are stronger than any weapon." The princess felt a strange feeling in her chest. It was respect, but she quickly masked it with a smirk. "Impressive," she said, "but do not think a single demonstration will change anything. You are still small, human. And this world, it is not yours." Marcus smiled faintly. "I do not seek to take it. I only seek to understand it, and perhaps to help it if I can." The princess studied him silently. The human soldier had not boasted, had not challenged her directly, yet he had made her reconsider what strength truly meant. Most of her life had been spent believing that power and status were everything. Yet here was a human, 19 years old, teaching her a lesson she had never expected to learn. As the sun set over Thaler Prime, the crystal towers reflecting brilliant colors, the princess realized this was only the beginning. The human had arrived small and unassuming, but already he had begun to change how she thought. Marcus walked beside her as they left the arena, quiet, observant, and calm. The princess could not help but wonder, what other surprises did humans hold? The next morning, the sun rose over Thaler Prime in streaks of violet and gold. Marcus stood at the edge of the palace plaza, his armor polished but modest, his movements calm and deliberate. He had slept little, but his mind was clear. Today, the princess had promised a challenge, something meant to test his worth. The alien princess Kalira arrived with her usual entourage, her silver robes catching the sunlight. She looked at Marcus and smirked. "I hope you slept well, human," she said. "You will need all your energy for today. Our tests are not easy, even for the strongest among us." Marcus nodded once. "I am ready." Kaelira's smirk widened. "Oh, I am sure you are. Ready to fail." The princess led him through a series of floating bridges and corridors. They passed towering crystal sculptures and pools of water that glowed with an inner light. Marcus walked calmly, noticing details the aliens themselves seemed to ignore. Small cracks in the crystal towers, the subtle rhythm of floating platforms, the way the light shifted with time of day. Finally, they reached a massive chamber. It was the test arena. The floor, walls, and ceiling were all covered with floating platforms, holographic barriers, and shifting gravity zones. Some areas defied normal physics entirely. Aliens had trained here for decades to navigate it flawlessly. Today, it would be Marcus's turn. Kaelira turned to him. "Your challenge is simple to describe, but difficult to complete. You must reach the center of this chamber where the orb of insight floats. It is protected by obstacles that test skill, speed, and intelligence. Many of our warriors cannot reach it in a single attempt. Can you?" Marcus studied the arena. Holographic barriers flickered in and out of view, some moving with unpredictable patterns. Gravity shifted in pockets, throwing off the trajectory of even the most agile beings. The platforms floated high above the floor and gaps were impossible to cross by normal jumping. Marcus took a deep breath. He could try brute force as most species would, but that would fail. He had observed enough to know that speed and strength alone were not enough here. Instead, he began planning. He noticed patterns in the holographic barriers, subtle repetitions that revealed a rhythm. The floating platforms shifted predictably if he moved in certain directions. Gravity zones were triggered by pressure sensors, not random chance. If he timed his steps and adjusted for these patterns, he could make it across safely. Kaelira watched him, her arms crossed. "Most humans would panic," she said to her advisors. "He seems calm, too calm, perhaps." Marcus began moving. He started slowly, stepping onto the first platform. He timed the holographic barrier carefully, slipping past it with a simple sidestep. Gravity shifted beneath him, pulling him down slightly, but he adjusted his balance instinctively. Each movement was precise, deliberate, and calculated. "Q," Princess raised an eyebrow. "Interesting," she murmured. "He is thinking," he continued, moving through the arena without rushing. Some alien warriors might have jumped quickly and relied on their reflexes to avoid obstacles. Marcus, however, paused where necessary, observed, and acted at exactly the right moment. When a holographic wall shifted suddenly, he did not panic. Instead, he traced the pattern, predicted the next movement, and walked calmly through the opening. A group of young alien observers gasped. They had expected him to fail spectacularly. He had no strength-enhancing armor, no energy shields, and no advanced tech beyond his suit's basic support. Yet he navigated the arena better than most trained aliens. Kaelira frowned. "He is unusual," she said. "No human should do this." The next part of the arena was the most dangerous, a series of floating platforms above a holographic pit that simulated a deadly drop. Each platform shifted slightly, rotating or moving up and down. One misstep would send anyone falling, or so the hologram suggested. Most aliens would have rushed, trusting their agility. Marcus did not. He watched, each platform for a full rotation before stepping. He noticed tiny control panels hidden in the walls which subtly adjusted the platforms. Using a small device from his suit, he synchronized his movements with the panels. Each step was smooth, precise, and safe. Kaelira's smirk had faded. She whispered to her advisor, "I did not expect this. He is clever." Marcus reached the final section, a circular platform with the orb of insight floating in the center. Holographic barriers surrounded it, moving faster and more unpredictably. Gravity shifted in erratic patterns. Any wrong move could prevent him from reaching it. He paused, analyzing carefully. The obstacles followed a pattern too subtle for most beings to notice, but he had studied them from the edges. He realized that the barriers were not random. They were designed to teach observation and patience. His mind raced as he calculated the correct path. He moved step by step, adjusting for the gravity shifts, timing his movement between holographic barriers, and finally reached the platform. The orb of insight floated before him, glowing softly. Marcus extended his hand. As he touched the orb, the holographic barriers disappeared, the gravity normalized, and a soft chime echoed through the chamber. He had completed the test. The princess's eyes widened. She had expected him to fail, expected him to stumble or panic. Yet here he was, standing calmly, having solved the challenge in a way no alien had anticipated. "Impossible," she whispered. Her voice carried a mix of disbelief and curiosity. No human should be able to do this, and yet he did it. Marcus looked at her, calm and steady. "I did not succeed because I am stronger or faster," he said. "I succeeded because I observed, planned, and adapted. Sometimes thinking is stronger than speed or power." The princess's advisors whispered among themselves. Marcus had done what no other alien could. He had approached the test in a way that relied not on physical ability, but on observation, logic, and creativity. Kalira narrowed her eyes. "You are unusual," she said slowly. "Most aliens rely on instinct and power. You rely on something else." Marcus smiled faintly. "Humans rely on adaptability. We use our minds, not just our bodies. We learn from mistakes, notice patterns, and find solutions others overlook. That is how we survive and sometimes thrive." The princess looked at him, intrigued but unwilling to admit admiration. "You make it sound so simple," she said. "Yet I have never seen anyone move through that arena like you did." "Perhaps humans are more interesting than I thought." Marcus stepped back, removing his helmet. His young face, calm eyes, and slight smile contrasted with the complex machinery around him. He did not boast, he did not demand recognition. He had done the task quietly and effectively. The princess studied him silently. Her usual confidence felt challenged, not by force, but by something she had never encountered before. Calm intelligence and ingenuity. "You may have passed the test," she said finally. "But do not think this changes anything. Our people are still far superior. Strength, skill, and technology, these are what matter." Marcus shook his head. "Sometimes the simplest approach is the strongest," he said. "You may have advanced technology, but observation, logic, and creativity can overcome obstacles that brute strength cannot." Kalira frowned but did not respond immediately. She had been trained to lead, to dominate, to command respect through power. Yet this human had shown her a new way, a quiet, unassuming way that still earned respect. The princess gestured for her entourage to follow. "Come," she said. "There are more things I want to show you. If you truly wish to understand our world." Marcus followed calmly, his armor gleaming in the alien sun. Though 19 years old, he carried himself with a maturity beyond his years. Every step he took demonstrated the human qualities the aliens did not fully understand: patience, observation, ingenuity, and quiet confidence. As they walked through the palace halls, Kalira found herself stealing glances at him. There was something different about humans. They were fragile in appearance, yes, but their minds, their instincts, and their ability to adapt were remarkable. For the first time, she wondered if she had underestimated humans entirely. Marcus did not notice the princess's thoughts. He was already thinking ahead, considering the next challenges, studying the palace and noting patterns in alien behavior. For humans, observation was key. Understanding a world before acting was more important than rushing blindly into it. Kalira, however, could not ignore it. This young human had completed a challenge that would have taken most of her warrior's weeks, and he did so calmly, quietly, and without arrogance. For the first time, she felt a spark of respect, not loud or obvious, but quiet, undeniable, and growing. As the sun set over the crystal towers of Thaler Prime, Marcus walked beside her, a human among aliens, showing that courage, intelligence, and calm confidence could shine even in a world built on strength and status. The princess knew deep down that the challenge was only the beginning. Humans were more remarkable than she had imagined, and Marcus had only just arrived. The palace of Thaler Prime was a place of wonders. Towers of crystal reflected the light in rainbow patterns. Corridors floated gently as if guided by invisible hands, and the air shimmered with soft currents of energy. Marcus walked through it quietly, observing everything. He had completed the arena challenge, but now another task awaited, a chance to understand the aliens' world more deeply. Kalira, the young princess, led him through a series of hidden corridors. Her usual smirk was softened by curiosity. She had expected a fragile human to fail spectacularly, but Marcus had passed the test with calm intelligence. She could not deny it. He was remarkable. "You wish to understand our world?" she asked, her voice quieter than usual. "Then follow me. Few outsiders have ever been allowed here." They arrived at a massive door, larger than any Marcus had seen. Intricate patterns of light danced across its surface, responding to the presence of Kalira. She placed her hand on a central panel, and the door slid open silently. Inside was the archive. Marcus had expected books or data crystals, but this room was different. Holographic screens floated in midair, showing images of battles, inventions, and failures. Every wall was a projection of alien history. "Here," Kalira said, gesturing to the archives, "is our past. You may look, but be careful. Some knowledge is restricted. Some truths are dangerous to the unprepared." Marcus stepped forward. He had always been careful with information, preferring observation over assumption. His eyes scanned the projections, images of alien ships, experimental weapons, intricate cities, and records of strategic failures. He noted the complexity, but also the flaws. Kalira watched silently, curious. Most beings would have skimmed the surface, dazzled by the technology. Marcus, however, moved slowly, analyzing the data, finding patterns. Many of these failures, he said, pointing to a holographic record of a collapsed city, could have been prevented with simpler solutions: observation, timing, and careful planning. "You relied on complexity when simplicity would have sufficed." Kalira raised an eyebrow. "You think you know better than our engineers, our leaders?" Her voice was sharp, but not mocking. There was genuine intrigue. "I do not claim to know better," Marcus said. "I see patterns you may overlook. Humans often succeed where others fail because we observe, learn, and adapt quickly. Sometimes the obvious solution is hidden beneath what seems necessary." Kalira stepped closer, studying him. She had never met anyone who spoke so confidently without arrogance. Most beings relied on status, weapons, or intimidation to prove worth. Marcus relied only on his mind and calm. He continued, pointing to another hologram of a failed space station orbiting a dying planet. "Here, the designers assumed the environment would stay constant. They did not account for simple changes in gravity and pressure. Humans would have noticed early signs and adapted before disaster struck." Kalira's lips pressed into a thin line. She was impressed, though she would not admit it aloud. "And you, a human, claim to see what centuries of alien engineers did not?" Marcus smiled faintly. "We do not claim, we observe. Adaptation is survival. We rely on understanding, not only power or technology. Sometimes that is enough to solve problems others cannot." The princess walked among the holograms, studying them carefully. Marcus had a point. Many of the greatest failures in their history had been due to oversight, arrogance, or blind faith in technology. Humans, by contrast, often faced danger with nothing but observation, improvisation, and creativity, and survived. "You are different," she admitted finally, though her tone was cautious. "Most humans I have heard of are small, fragile, and expendable. Yet you think, observe, and adapt in ways that I do not understand. Marcus glanced at her, calm and steady. We survive because we notice what others do not. We use our minds, and sometimes that is stronger than any weapon or armor. Kalira was silent for a moment. She had been raised to see humans as weak, primitive, almost amusing. Yet this human had completed the arena challenge, analyzed their history, and spoken with a confidence that did not depend on power or status. She led him deeper into the archive. There were records of the great wars between alien nations, maps of planets devastated by poor planning, and data on failed experiments with energy and matter manipulation. Marcus moved from projection to projection, quietly noting solutions and possibilities. You seem to learn quickly, Kalira said, almost reluctantly. Most beings would be overwhelmed by this information. Marcus shook his head. I do not try to remember everything. I try to understand what is important. Observe, notice patterns, think ahead. That is how humans survive. That is how we learn. Kalira studied him. She had never encountered a being so young who could speak with such clarity about complex matters. Her mind had been trained to prioritize status, power, and technology. Marcus had reminded her that intellect, patience, and observation could rival them. They arrived at a hologram depicting a failed alien diplomatic mission. The diplomats had ignored subtle signals from the opposing species, assumed superiority, and lost valuable alliances. Marcus studied it and noted where humans might have acted differently. Here, he said, pointing, humans would have noticed the tension early. We pay attention to small details, to tone, to hesitation. We adapt before the situation becomes critical. Often that is enough to succeed where others fail. Kalira frowned. You may be correct. Humans may have an advantage. I did not anticipate. Marcus smiled faintly. It is not superiority in technology or strength. It is awareness, observation, and adaptability. These are qualities humans rely on to survive. The princess looked at him silently. Her pride was challenged, but she could not ignore the truth in his words. Humans were fragile in appearance, yes, but their minds, instincts, and ability to adapt were remarkable. Marcus was living proof. You are unlike any human I have heard of, she said finally. You think carefully, observe patterns, and act deliberately. Most humans are reckless, impulsive. Marcus shook his head. We are diverse. Some are impulsive, some careful, but survival depends on noticing what others miss. That is what humans are best at, adapting. Kalira's expression softened, though she did not admit admiration openly. And yet, you are only 19. Still so young, and yet, you teach me lessons I have never learned in all my years. Marcus glanced at her. I do not claim to teach. I only share observations. Perhaps it is useful to you, perhaps not. I am learning as well. For the first time, Kalira felt something unfamiliar, humility. She had been trained to see herself as superior, to expect respect through status and power. Marcus had shown her that intelligence, patience, and observation could challenge even the most advanced civilization. The princess led him to the final section of the archive, a hologram of the oldest alien experiments, attempts to control energy and matter. Most had failed. Marcus noticed simple solutions that the aliens had overlooked. He pointed them out quietly, showing how small adjustments could have prevented the failures. You notice what others do not, Kalira said softly. Your mind sees possibilities we miss. Perhaps humans are remarkable in ways I never understood. Marcus nodded. We survive by noticing, adapting, and learning. That is our strength. Not weapons, not armor, not power. Just awareness, ingenuity, and patience. Kalira studied him silently. For the first time, she considered the possibility that humans, despite their small size and apparent fragility, might have something the aliens lacked. Perspective. Humility, patience, and creativity could rival even the most advanced technology. The sun outside began to set, casting long, colorful shadows through the crystal towers. Marcus stood calmly in the archive, his young face serene, his eyes observant. Kaelira felt a strange mix of respect and curiosity. "You are extraordinary, human," she admitted quietly. "Not because of strength or armor, but because of your mind. You have taught me to look differently at the world." Marcus smiled faintly. "I have only shared what humans do naturally. Observation, learning, adaptation. We survive not because we are strongest, but because we notice, think, and act when others do not." Kaelira looked at him silently, realizing the truth in his words. She had mocked him once, expecting weakness. Now she saw a human not fragile but remarkable, calm, clever, and resilient in ways she had never imagined. As they left the archive, the princess was quiet. Marcus walked beside her, humble, observant, and unassuming. Yet she knew he had changed, something in her mind. Humans were not what she had expected. They were clever, adaptable, and patient, qualities that even the most advanced aliens could admire. And for the first time, Kaelira wondered, perhaps humans were not only survivors but teachers, showing even the greatest civilizations that intelligence, observation, and ingenuity could outshine strength and technology. Marcus did not speak of this. He simply walked beside her quietly, calmly, as the alien city shimmered around them. His presence was a reminder. Humans were small, fragile, yet capable of remarkable things. Kaelira realized that the human before her, though young and seemingly ordinary, might be the key to understanding something her people had long overlooked: the true power of intelligence, observation, and adaptability. For the first time, she felt something new: respect. And she knew it would only grow. The grand hall of Thalor Prime shimmered under the light of floating crystals. It was the largest chamber in the palace, stretching so high that the ceiling seemed to touch the sky itself. Alien nobles had gathered, floating in their anti-gravity platforms, whispering among themselves about the human soldier. Some doubted he would even appear. Others were curious to see the results of the arena challenge and the revelations from the archive. Kaelira, the young princess, led Marcus to the center of the hall. The murmurs quieted as she raised a hand. "Today," she said, her voice echoing across the chamber, "you will face the judgment of our people. All may witness how this human compares to our greatest warriors." Marcus stepped forward calmly. His armor glinted, modest compared to the elaborate suits of the alien elite. Yet there was a quiet dignity in the way he moved. The hall was silent now. No one mocked him. All were watching, waiting. Kaelira leaned closer, her eyes narrowing with curiosity and a hint of mischief. "Do you intend to impress them?" she asked softly. Marcus shook his head. "I do not need to impress anyone. I only need to be myself." The princess smirked, though there was tension in it. Most aliens relied on appearance, weapons, and armor to command respect. Marcus had none of that. Yet he walked as if he belonged here. "Very well," she said, straightening. "Show them, human." Marcus reached the center of the hall. The nobles watched, some with skepticism, others with faint admiration. He paused for a moment, then slowly unclasped the armor across his chest. The metallic plates fell away, revealing the simple uniform beneath. Gasps echoed through the hall. The aliens had expected the human to rely on armor or weapons to display strength. Instead, he stood there, calm and unarmed, confident only in himself. Kaelira raised an eyebrow. "You remove your armor?" she asked. There was disbelief in her tone. "Why would you do such a thing?" Marcus smiled faintly. "Armor is not strength. Confidence and self-respect are." The princess whispered to her advisors. "He is brave, or perhaps foolish." Marcus ignored them. He did not need their approval. He had faced challenges already: the arena, the archive, and proven that human ingenuity, observation, and adaptability could solve problems that brute strength could not. Armor was only a symbol, and he did not need symbols to show who he was. The hall grew silent. Nobles whispered among themselves. Some were outraged at the audacity of a human standing without armor. Others were intrigued. His calm demeanor, his unassuming presence seemed to command respect without a word or gesture of dominance. Kalyra studied him silently. She had mocked him before, expecting fear or humiliation. Instead, he had walked into their court and removed his armor, showing that humans relied on something deeper than appearances, something she could not define but could feel. "Do you not fear judgment?" she asked finally, unable to hide her curiosity. Marcus shook his head. "Fear does not help. Confidence, observation, and patience. These guide us better than armor or weapons." A murmur ran through the hall. Nobles whispered in amazement. They had never seen anyone, human or alien, act with such quiet courage. Kalyra gestured to the holographic display above the hall. It showed scenes from the arena and the archive, highlighting Marcus's accomplishments. The nobles gasped at the efficiency and intelligence displayed. He had solved problems that had taken generations of aliens weeks, sometimes years, to attempt. "You see," Marcus said softly, his voice calm but carrying through the chamber. "Humans do not rely on strength alone. We observe, we adapt, we learn. That is how we survive and often thrive where others fail." Kalyra's smirk had faded. She felt something unfamiliar, a mixture of respect and curiosity. Most beings relied on status, weapons, and appearances to earn recognition. Marcus relied on something more subtle, more powerful: intellect, observation, and quiet confidence. An elder noble, silver-skinned and tall, floated closer. "Is it true, Princess?" he asked. "Did this human navigate the arena perfectly and understand our archives better than any of our students?" Kalyra nodded. "Yes, he did not rely on strength, speed, or technology. He relied on his mind and patience." The elder studied Marcus carefully. "It is impressive. Yet he is human, fragile, small. How can one so young and unarmed command respect?" Marcus stepped forward slightly, meeting the elder's gaze without fear. "Respect is earned through actions and character, not size, strength, or status. We humans survive because we notice what others miss. We act wisely and patiently, not impulsively. That is why I am here, not to command, but to learn and to show what humans can do." The hall was silent. Even the princess's advisors were quiet, unsure how to respond. Marcus's words were simple, yet they carried weight. They spoke of a kind of strength that the aliens had not considered. Strength that did not rely on power, weapons, or technology, but on intelligence, patience, and observation. Kalyra studied him carefully. Her usual arrogance felt challenged. She had mocked him once, expecting him to fail or fear judgment. Instead, he had stood calmly, removed his armor, and quietly commanded respect. "You walk unarmed among warriors and nobles," she said softly. "And yet, you do not fear?" Marcus shook his head. "Fear is not useful when understanding is better. Observation and careful action guide humans more than strength alone. That is why we survive, and often succeed where others fail." A young noble whispered, "He speaks truth. I have never heard such words in this hall." Others nodded in agreement. Slowly, murmurs of admiration replaced whispers of doubt. Kalyra's gaze softened. She had underestimated humans before. Most of her life had been spent believing that strength, status, and technology were everything. Marcus had shown her that intelligence, patience, and calm confidence were equally powerful, even more so in many situations. "You are unlike any human I have known," she said finally. "You do not rely on armor, weapons, or status. You rely only on yourself. And yet, you command respect." Marcus smiled faintly. "I do not command respect. I earn it through action, observation, and understanding. Humans survive not because we are strongest, but because we notice, think, and adapt. Kalira studied him silently. The hall had grown quiet. Nobles and warriors alike were watching in astonishment. This small 19-year-old human had walked into their court, removed his armor, and demonstrated a strength far greater than what any weapon or status could provide. "You have changed something here today," Kalira said softly. "You have shown that strength is not only power or armor. Perhaps humans have qualities we have overlooked." Marcus nodded. "We humans are small, yes, but we survive because we observe, learn, and adapt. That is our strength." The princess felt a strange sense of humility. She had mocked him once, expecting arrogance, fear, or failure. Instead, Marcus had walked calmly, demonstrated intelligence, and quietly earned respect. She realized for the first time that humans could teach even the most advanced civilizations something important, that true strength comes from patience, understanding, and self-confidence. The hall remained silent for a moment longer. Then, Kalira spoke again, her voice carrying authority but tinged with newfound respect. "You may stand unarmed among us, human. You may walk without fear, even in the presence of our nobility. And yet you have earned our attention, and perhaps our respect." Marcus bowed slightly, not in submission but in acknowledgement. "Thank you. I only share what humans naturally do. Observe, adapt, and act wisely. That is all." The princess studied him, her mind working through the implications. A human had walked into their court, unarmed, young, and seemingly fragile, and yet had demonstrated courage, intelligence, and calm confidence that even the most elite aliens had not shown. "You are remarkable," she admitted quietly. "Perhaps humans are more than I ever imagined." Marcus smiled faintly, his calm demeanor unchanged. "We are not perfect, but we adapt. We learn. That is how we survive, and sometimes thrive." Kalira nodded slowly. She realized that the human before her had shown her a lesson she would not forget. Strength is not always measured by armor, weapons, or power. True strength often lies in observation, patience, intelligence, and quiet confidence. As the sun set over the crystal towers of Thalor Prime, casting long shadows through the hall, Marcus walked beside Kalira. He did not boast, he did not demand recognition, yet all who witnessed him knew that humans, small, fragile, and young, could command respect through qualities far greater than power alone. For Kalira, the realization was profound. She had mocked him once, expecting weakness. Now she understood that true strength could come in unexpected forms, and Marcus, quietly and calmly, had shown it to her, and to everyone in the hall. The human soldier had walked away from his armor, but he had not walked away from respect. Instead, he had quietly earned it, showing that humans could inspire even the most advanced alien civilizations without a word of threat, a strike of power, or a display of technology. The crystal towers of Thalor Prime glowed softly as night fell. The alien city shimmered under a sky streaked with violet and gold. Marcus walked calmly beside Kalira, the young princess, through the quiet palace gardens. Floating lights illuminated the paths, and the gentle hum of energy from the city's technology filled the air. Kalira had been silent for a long while. Since the court gathering, her thoughts had been racing. Marcus, the human soldier, had walked into the hall, removed his armor, and commanded respect, not with strength, weapons, or status, but with quiet confidence, intelligence, and observation. She could not stop thinking about him. "You continue to surprise me," she said finally, her voice softer than usual. "I expected you to be fragile, weak, and yet you have done more than any of my soldiers, my advisors, or even I could imagine." Marcus smiled faintly, calm as always. "I do not seek to surprise. I only act according to what humans do naturally. Observe, adapt, and understand. That is our strength." Kalira stopped walking and turned to him, her arms folded across her chest. "Your strength is not in your armor or your weapons. It is in your mind, in your confidence, in the way you face challenges calmly. Humans are remarkable in ways I never expected. Marcus nodded. We survive by noticing what others miss, by thinking before acting, by learning from mistakes. That is how humans thrive. The princess studied him, realizing something important. All her life she had been trained to value power, status, and technology. She had mocked him at first, expecting weakness. Now she understood. Humans had a strength that was subtle but powerful. Intelligence, observation, patience, and integrity. You have shown me a different kind of strength, she said softly. One that does not rely on force, armor, or status. One that earns respect quietly, through action and character. Marcus's calm eyes met hers. That is all humans rely on. We are small, fragile in appearance, but we survive because we notice, adapt, and act wisely. That is why we are respected, not because of weapons, but because of what we do and how we think. Clara felt a deep sense of admiration. She had spent her life surrounded by beings who valued power above all else. Yet here was a human, young and unassuming, who had shown her that intellect and integrity could surpass even the most advanced technology. Your people must be extraordinary, she said, almost in wonder. To survive among the stars without relying on strength alone. It is impressive. Marcus shook his head. We are not perfect, but we learn, we adapt, and we act. That is enough to survive and sometimes to thrive. Clara studied him silently. There was no arrogance in him, no boastful pride, just calm confidence and intelligence. She realized that respect was not given, it was earned through action, insight, and integrity. And Marcus had earned it fully. Dr. Following day, Clara brought Marcus to the council chamber, where the leaders of Thaler Prime gathered. The chamber was vast, floating above the city, with a panoramic view of the glowing towers below. The elders, nobles, and military commanders were already assembled, their expressions curious and cautious. Today, Clara announced, we recognize the human who has walked among us with courage, intelligence, and dignity. He has shown choicest qualities we did not expect and lessons we cannot ignore. Marcus stepped forward, calm and composed. He did not raise his voice, he did not boast, he simply stood with quiet confidence. An elder floated closer, silver-skinned and tall. It is true, the elder said. The human has completed the arena, understood our archives, and faced our court without fear. He demonstrates a strength unlike any we have seen. Marcus nodded respectfully. Thank you. I do not claim to be superior. I only share what humans do naturally. Observe, adapt, and act wisely. That is all. The council members murmured among themselves, impressed. Humans had been considered small, fragile, and primitive by their standards. Yet here was one who had accomplished what few aliens could, without weapons or armor. Clara stepped forward. He has shown us that intelligence, patience, and integrity are as important as strength and technology. Humans, though small and fragile, can achieve remarkable things. The council fell silent, considering her words. Finally, one of the elder commanders spoke. If humans possess such qualities, then perhaps it is time we invite them to be equal partners in our alliances. They may teach us things we have long overlooked. Clara smiled faintly. Indeed. That is why I brought him here, to show us that strength is not only measured by power or technology, but by intellect, observation, and character. Marcus remained humble, nodding in acknowledgement. Humans do not seek to dominate. We seek to learn, to adapt, and to work together. That is our strength. The council deliberated, and eventually they reached a decision. Humans would be invited as equal partners in their interstellar alliances. Their ingenuity, patience, and adaptability were qualities that even advanced civilizations could respect and learn from. The princess turned to Marcus. You have earned not just my respect, but the respect of my people. And perhaps one day, Humans will be recognized not for their fragility, but for their intelligence, courage, and adaptability. Marcus smiled faintly. I am honored. Humans have much to learn as well. We do not claim to know everything, but we share what we observe and discover. Kalira nodded. For the first time, she saw humans in a new light. They were small, yes, and seemingly fragile, but their minds, patience, and ingenuity were extraordinary. Marcus, young and unassuming, had shown her that humans could achieve what many aliens could not. The following weeks were filled with collaboration. Humans worked alongside alien engineers, strategists, and leaders, offering insights that combined simple observation with creative solutions. Many alien failures of the past were revisited, and humans offered approaches that were effective, efficient, and unexpected. Kalira often walked beside Marcus during these sessions, observing quietly. She asked questions, learned from his reasoning, and slowly began to admire not just his intelligence but his humility, patience, and confidence. One evening, they walked through the palace gardens, the air filled with soft light and gentle hums of energy. Kalira turned to him, her expression thoughtful. You have taught me much, Marcus, not just about humans, but about strength itself. True strength is not power alone. It is patience, understanding, and integrity. Marcus nodded. That is all humans rely on. We survive because we notice what others miss, because we learn, and because we act wisely. That is enough to make a difference, even in worlds far from our own. Kalira smiled, her usual arrogance replaced with quiet admiration. I underestimated your kind. I mocked you at first, but now I see that humans are remarkable in ways I never imagined. You have my respect, Marcus, and not just mine, my people's respect as well. Marcus's smile was calm, unassuming. Thank you. Humans do not seek respect for its own sake. We seek to learn, to adapt, and to share what we know. Respect is earned naturally when we act with integrity. The princess nodded. For the first time, she felt the weight of her own assumptions. Humans had seemed fragile, small, and limited. Now she understood that their true strength lay in qualities the aliens often overlooked: observation, patience, ingenuity, and quiet confidence. In the days that followed, humans became valued allies of Thaler Prime. Their approaches to problem-solving, diplomacy, and innovation impressed even the most advanced aliens. Marcus continued to observe, learn, and offer insights, quietly earning trust and admiration. Kalira often watched him and marveled at his calm confidence. He did not boast, he did not flaunt intelligence, yet he influenced everyone around him. The young princess realized that humans were capable of extraordinary things not because of technology or strength, but because of character, intellect, and adaptability. One evening, as they stood together on the palace observation deck, watching the twin moons rise over the glowing city, Kalira spoke softly. You have shown me the truth, Marcus. Humans are not weak. You are small, yes, and fragile in appearance, but your mind, your courage, and your patience are extraordinary. You have earned not just respect, but admiration. Marcus nodded quietly. Humans do not seek to dominate. We seek to observe, learn, and act wisely. That is enough to make a difference, even among civilizations far stronger than ours. Kalira smiled faintly, a mixture of pride and awe. Perhaps, one day, humans will be known not for what they lack, but for what they achieve. You have already begun to change my perception, and the perception of my people. As the stars glittered above Thaler Prime, Marcus stood calmly beside the young princess. The fragile human had walked among aliens, completed impossible challenges, and quietly earned respect through intelligence, observation, and patience. His presence was a reminder. True strength comes not from weapons, armor, or status, but from mind, character, and quiet confidence. Kalira knew, deep in her heart, that humans had much to teach, even the most advanced civilizations. And Marcus, 19 years old, young and unassuming, had shown them all exactly why humans were remarkable. The alien princess smiled, finally understanding the truth. Humans may appear small, fragile, and ordinary, but their ingenuity, patience, and integrity could change worlds.